I just love that this ship is arguably the most toxic of them all, and I'm about to sit here and rave about them for the next like 20 minutes. Hello everyone, my name is Caitlin and welcome back to my channel. So it's finally happening, we're finally doing a Casey and Brett love story. I think I have put off talking about them for the past like 3 videos now, but the time has finally come. And I am so excited to finally be able to talk about a ship that I like and is good for once, because I don't think I've actually done that since my Starco video about a year ago. I mean, unless you count my Alex and Mason video from last month, which I personally don't because I feel like I was much more critical than anything else. But yes, with all that being said, I am really excited. So enough talk, let's just jump right into it. Alright, so we first meet Brett in season 1, episode 10. He is also a teen spy in which Casey gets paired up with for an assignment in which they have to pose as a couple. And so right off the bat, I'm on board because I am just a sucker for the fake dating trope. And at first, Casey is really excited about this as we see through her exclaiming how fine he is after seeing a picture of him. But then this excitement quickly changes after they meet and she is put off by his nonstop talking and goofing off when they're supposed to be going over their assignment. And also his cockiness in regards to how great of a spy he is a big turnoff for her as well. Then the following day at school, we have this great scene where Brett comes up to Casey, calls her babe, puts his arm around her, and tells her friend Marissa that he's her boyfriend. Casey cringes at this, but she's not able to explain anything in the moment without Brett finding out that she's revealed to Marissa that she's a spy, which is strictly forbidden. So Marissa tells Brett that he's Casey's first boyfriend, which he goes on to tease her about, and then Casey explains to Marissa that she didn't tell her about Brett because their relationship is still very new. Then Marissa leaves and we get this great moment between the two of them. I just love seeing Casey call out Brett for acting as though they're a couple when, like she says, that's not necessary, because I think it hints at the fact that Brett might have been interested in her from the very beginning, which would explain why he's so eager to put his arm around her and act like they are a couple even when they're not on the field. And of course, I also love the fact that this is the birth of their babe nickname, which continues to be a thing for their relationship moving forward. I also just had to mention that these two are just so good at banter, and I love that we got scenes like this from the very beginning to kind of show their like enemies half of their enemies to lovers story. So now we move on to their first date/mission in which we see Brett meet up with Casey in the back of a movie theater, and he teases her for picking the back row, alluding to that being a good spot for them to kiss. She goes on to punch him, saying that she chose it as it's a good spot to spy on people, which is what they're supposed to be doing. The two then go on to get into another fight once Brett offers her popcorn and she gets mad that there's butter on it, as it's stated in the profile that she sent him that her character is supposed to be lactose intolerant. Brett then goes on to call her profile a 30-page manifesto about their fake relationship, which is another thing that I love because I feel like it just shows how much effort Casey is putting into all of this, and also maybe hinting at the fact that she does have some interest in him as well. Then we have this great moment where they bring up the babe nickname once again that I just had to play for you all.
Let me tell you something about your man here. I didn't read your cover profile because I like the thing on my feet. That's right, improvise. It keeps me in the moment, keeps me on my toes.
Keeps you from having to do any extra work in advance.
Now you're getting me, babe.
Okay, stop calling me babe. For this mission, my name is Anastasia Van Wallingford. You may call me Annie, Vanny, or Wally. It is all in the manifest, profile.
Okay, look.
I just love their continued teasing in this scene, especially because it is about their previous dating history, because it's just so irrelevant to their mission, which I feel like, again, just shows that there is some underlying interest on both ends. So now we're post-movie date/mission, and we're back at Casey's house, and Brett says that he's done a lot of research, and Casey is relieved, thinking that he's referring to the mission. But then it turns out that he was actually researching the dairy content in movie theater butter, and says that most movie theaters actually use a buttery flavoring, so it shouldn't affect her character's fake lactose intolerance at all. Which again is another great moment, because why would he spend all of his time researching that if it wasn't just to get some sort of a reaction out of Casey? And why would he want to get a reaction out of her? Well, because he likes her, of course, if that wasn't obvious already. I'm just not really too sure he knows it yet. And then this is proven to be the case once we see Marissa interrupt the two of them and Casey leaves, and then Brett goes on to flirt with Marissa. And so yeah, this wasn't a great moment on his part, and I do not condone this behavior whatsoever, but in a strange way, I feel like this also could have been done as just like another way to get under Casey's skin. Like, what better way to annoy her than starting to date her best friend? So this brings us to the following day at school, where Marissa tells Casey that Brett made a move on her. Casey tries to pretend to be upset, but then tells her not to worry about it and confesses that he's not actually her boyfriend and was only posing as such for a mission. She then goes on to say that she can't stand him, that he makes her want to vomit in her mouth, that he's obnoxious, egotistical, and a musclehead. Marissa's not fazed by this at all though, and takes all of it as an in. Then we have the Casey and Brett confrontation after he shows up at her house with some flowers.
Here, these are for you.
Aww, and these are for you! You think I wouldn't find out?
Find out what?
That you put the moves on my best friend. What were you thinking?
You know we're not really dating, right?
Yeah, I know that! But not everyone else knows that. You broke cover.
Did I? Did I really? Because I thought that keeping cover only mattered when we're out in the field during an actual mission. Where did I learn that? Oh, right. Some annoying chick I once did a mission with.
You don't deserve me.
Again, not really dating.
I know that.
I really like this scene. It's another great banter moment, and it makes you wonder if she actually is mad at him for breaking cover, or if a small part of her is jealous over the fact that he never actually put the moves on her, which I think maybe gets confirmed at the end of this episode, but we'll get to that in a second. But back to their mission. So basically, Casey ends up getting caught by the movie pirators, and Brett comes to save her, which results in her in his lap, and she's very impressed by all of this, saying that she finally understands why he was Junior Spy of the Year. Then we get to the end of the episode where we finally see the two of them being civil with one another for the very first time.
You were amazing tonight.
What, me? Bro, you're the one who saved my butt.
It was your contingency plan. I just followed it. Page 26, section 4A.
Wait, so you did read my manifesto?
I might have skimmed it.
Look, Brett, there was something I've been meaning to tell you. I know things between us have been a little...
Sorry.
So obviously super unfortunate that Marissa's phone call ended up interrupting that moment because I was just dying to know what Casey was about to say, but I don't actually think it was going to be a confession of love or anything quite yet. I assumed she was about to say that she enjoyed working with him or that she was wrong about him or something along those lines. Because while she does go on to say that she regrets not saying something sooner, I doubt that she would have been like, hey, I like you, like right off the bat. Also, I love the confession that Brett did actually read her profile because I feel like it just goes to show how much he does genuinely care. So Casey goes on to give Brett the okay to go out with Marissa, and then we end up seeing the effect this has on Casey when she's left sad and alone. We then have this conversation with her and her dad, which gives us even more confirmation when she says that it doesn't matter if she likes him as he likes somebody else. Moving on to part 2 of this episode, we see Casey become absolutely obsessed with their relationship, clearly overcompensating for feeling guilty that she has feelings for him as well. We see her create a whole dating calendar and scrapbook for them, as well as crash one of her dates that she planned for them. She then goes on to talk about how much she loves Froyo and how she didn't realize it at first, but now she can't have it because Marissa has it, clearly referring to Brett before leaving. The following day at school, Casey tells Marissa that Brett seems like the best boyfriend ever, that he's fun, smart, artistic, and that she couldn't think of a more perfect guy. This results in Marissa saying that she should go out with him instead, which obviously Casey responds by overdramatically laughing it off. And then unfortunately for Casey, the two get paired up for a mission once again, but this time posing as ballet dancers auditioning for a company. Casey is having a hard time focusing on their mission though, due to being worried about Zane, who is her dad's ex-partner, who has recently made a threat against her family. So Brett notices this lack in focus that she has and gets her to confide in him, saying that if she can't trust him, then who can she trust? So she explains that this guy is after her family and that she can't go to the organization about it due to her dad lying to them about eliminating him, when in reality he let him go. So Brett says that if this guy wants to get to her family, then he's going to have to go through him first, and that he'll be able to help by discreetly using organization's resources to learn more about him. Then Casey accidentally calls him crazy hot, and then the two of them go on to rehearse for their audition.
We have to practice our ballet routine. Okay. So I'm gonna put my arm around you like this.
Okay, and what are you gonna do with your other arm?
Well, I think I'd do something like this.
Okay, that works.
But the best part is when I spin you like this.
Okay, you know what? I don't think I'm good enough to rehearse with you yet. In fact, I think I should rehearse on my own, and you should go practice with Marissa, your girlfriend, my best friend, your girlfriend, Marissa.
So I'm sure you guys can tell why I love this scene. Seeing Casey all flustered and Brett kind of playing into that is just my favorite thing. It just kind of sucks that he is still technically with Marissa in this moment. But that ends up not lasting for much longer, as at lunch the next day, Marissa ends up admitting to Casey that she's not too sure about him anymore, and the only reason why they were still together is because Casey seemed so into them and she didn't want to disappoint her. But then she says that she sees the way that Casey looks at him and that she knows that she likes him. Casey denies this and says that she would never do that to her, but Marissa begs her to take him back and gives her her blessing on the condition that she breaks up with him for her. So now we're at the ballet auditions, and Casey tells Brett that she needs to talk to him about something afterwards. He tries to convince her to tell him now, saying that she gets a little bit distracted when something's on her mind, but she's worried that the same will happen to him once she tells him. He goes on to encourage her to tell him anyways during their audition, which she does, saying that she's sorry, but Marissa is breaking up with him. He laughs, saying that he likes someone else, and she gets mad at him for liking someone else while dating her best friend, until he confesses that that someone else is her, in which she confesses that she likes him as well. Following their audition, Brett asks Casey out on a real date, and she says that she could go for a kale salad, which he ends up saying at the same time as her, showing just how well he knows her. They then get compromised and end up having to fight some bad guys together like the true power couple that they are. Back at home, Casey comes in saying that Brett has found Zane and that he's being held in a consolatory confinement facility and is no longer a threat to them. But unfortunately, this is where things take a turn, as then we find out the real motive behind Brett's actions.
Hey, let me talk to Zane. Tell him it's his son. Hey, Dad. Yeah, your plan's working. I'm in.
Honestly, plot twist of the century. Even when I was rewatching all of this for this video, I completely forgot about the fact that he was his son. Like, he wasn't just working for Zane, he's literally his child. And I feel like one of the main reasons why this twist works so well is because of the fact that Brett actually caught feelings for Casey throughout all of this. I mean, this is confirmed later on, but I feel like it's just so obvious that he's not acting throughout all of this because of how genuine his feelings are for her, to the point where I don't even think he knows how deep they are yet. And so now that Brett's secret has been revealed, I feel like this is a good time to move on to chapter 2. So now we're on to part 3, which really starts off with a bang as we have Casey revealing to Marissa that she might be in love with Brett. They have a movie date where they both express how happy they are together, and then we see them out again, but this time on a froyo date. But then we are reminded of Brett's true intentions as he gets interrupted by a phone call from his dad, and he steps out and tells him that he will deliver Casey to him on Saturday. So this is when his plan starts to unfold. He gets Casey some fake Beyonce tickets to a show out of state and tells her to lie to her parents, saying that she's staying at a friend's house that night so that she can go. And then after a talk with Marissa, she decides to do just that. So now the two of them are driving to what Casey thinks is this concert until Brett misses the exit, and then his plan is revealed.
All right, this isn't funny, Brett.
It's not meant to be, Casey. My dad will explain everything to you.
That is impossible. Okay, we can't be going to see Zane because he is in a foreign prison.
And who told you that?
You did.
See, that's another thing I've been keeping from you, Casey. I'm a liar.
Yeah, I'm starting to pick that up.
So you might be thinking, Caitlin, how on earth could you ship something like this when one of them literally kidnaps the other? And I think my only excuse for this would be the fact that that's literally the genre of this show. It's a spy show, like there's going to be kidnapping, murder, threats, like that's the whole point of it. Like it's literally built into the framework of it. And I don't want to give any excuses for Brett because like, yeah, obviously don't kidnap your girlfriend, that's insane, but like there is also the fact that he's a literal child working for his father. I'm sure that there's got to be some validation in there that he's seeking, which would explain his actions here. But moving on, we then see Casey tied up in a barn in which she spent the night in, and so I can only assume that that is also Brett's doing. He then shows up the following morning with breakfast for her, and she confronts him, asking if he ever actually had feelings for her.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
Shoot.
If I had my laser gun, I would. Did you ever really have feelings for me?
Of course I liked you. Hey, we'll always have our missions and froyo and dates with your dad. Come on, Casey. You know this isn't personal.
Well, speaking as a girl who's tied up in a barn, it feels pretty personal to me.
I'm sorry, but this is bigger than both of us. Like it or not, you and I are on opposite sides of this war.
I personally feel like that clip does a great job of explaining what I was previously trying to. Obviously, Brett does genuinely care for her, but feels as though what his dad is doing is more important than these feelings that he's developed. Which makes sense when you think about the fact that he was probably raised and conditioned to one day complete this mission for him. Like, I can't even begin to imagine the turmoil and childhood trauma that's probably going on in his head right now, that if this series was on any other network, they probably would have explored a lot further. So this scene continues with Casey comparing the two of them to Romeo and Juliet, and she tries to convince him to let her go by saying that she knows that he's not his father, and that if he ever actually did have feelings for her, that he would let her go. But then the two end up getting interrupted by Zane. He basically says he's going to kill Casey and everything else that her parents love, and while they're at it, they're also going to destroy the organization, and Casey expresses how happy she is that she never let Brett kiss her. Moving on to part 4, which is also the final chapter of this storyline, we find out that Casey has been held prisoner in this barn for 2 weeks, which makes me wonder how much she has seen of Brett during this time. I personally like to imagine that he has been coming in and keeping her company, but who knows. Speaking of Brett, he starts to fake date the fake Casey that Zane has planted to make sure that her parents aren't suspicious of her disappearance. Then in typical Marissa fashion, she's the only one that's able to figure out that this Casey isn't the real Casey. And I say this because their connection is one of my absolute favorites on this show, and so if it wasn't obvious already, yes, I ship Casey and Marissa as well. So Marissa gets kidnapped after figuring it all out, and she gets placed in the barn with Casey. And we get this great moment where Bernice, who is the fake Casey, says that Casey and Marissa are perfect for each other, which again, just fuels my shipping heart. Brett. Then thanks to Marissa, they are able to escape by using one of Casey's lipstick lasers. So Casey rushes to the organization to stop Brett, the two of them get into a fight and she wins, and then while he's unconscious, she says that she's breaking up with him. So while this may seem like a pretty definitive ending for this couple, their storyline does not end there. Brett does disappear for a little bit, but then we see him come back in episode 18. So while undercover for a mission, Casey gets recruited for an enemy spy organization called The Other Side, and so Casey goes in undercover. Then in another shocking twist, because the show is just so good at those, we come to find out that Brett is working for The Other Side as a combat instructor. So Brett uses Casey as a volunteer and he kind of puts her through it. Then he asks her her name, and when she gives him her fake name, he says he hasn't heard a name that ridiculous since Gorky Finkter, which is the fake name that she gave him during their ballet audition. So a cute little callback there. He teases her, saying that she reminds him of somebody that he used to know, almost threatening to blow her cover, but then says that her name slipped his mind.
You know, you remind me of someone I used to know. She talked a lot more than you do. Yeah, she was a really annoying pain in the butt. What was her name again? Oh, yeah. It was... Her name just slipped my mind. Oh, well. It'll probably come back to me. Now partner up, people. Oh, and Puppet, you're with me.
So Brett goes on to dismiss everybody but holds Casey back, and so she confesses to him that she's there undercover, which he obviously gathered. They then do their arguing back and forth over top of one another once again, just like old times, and Casey asks him why he didn't just turn her in. Then Brett kind of rambles on about how he just wants her out of here and out of his life, and that if he turned her in, they would just kill her, and then her ghost would haunt him for the rest of his life, and that he doesn't need that bad mojo, and so Casey calls him out for still having feelings for her.
Oh my gosh. You like me?
What?
You like me? I can tell.
No, I don't. Opposite of like you. Yeah, I hate you because you are too tall, you're too smart, you're too pretty, and you drive me crazy.
Okay, I was wrong. You really like me.
I actually feel like this episode might be my favorite out of all of their story arcs, and I feel like that scene is just a great example as to why. Suddenly the two of them are on the same playing field, and the banter and teasing that it results in is just top tier. Moving on though, the following day we find out that the other side is aware that there is a mole amongst them, they just don't know who it is. So Casey confronts Brett asking if he's told, but he says that if he had told that she would already be dead by now, and that she needs to leave before she gets taken out. But then as if on cue, that is when they get interrupted by the leader of the other side.
What's going on? Who's gonna be taken out?
I'm gonna take Puppet out. On a date. Because we like each other.
Yeah. I mean, took one look at him and was like, man, this guy's bad news. But the good news is, I like bad news. Unless the bad news has to do with friends or family, and then it's just a bummer.
Zip it, Puppet.
I really like that we get to see Brett lying to protect Casey here, especially after how their storyline ended last time, and that was something that he didn't do. I feel like this is definitely the redemption that his character needed, and I think it's a great way to get us to root for them once again. So then we have this conversation between the two of them where Brett encourages her to leave once again, but Casey refuses and says that she knows that he will help her because there's good in him. She even offers him to go with her and says that she can get the organization to take him back. He's not so sure at first, but then caves when she gets upset, saying that she's not sure why she even asked him to begin with. So he goes on to help her get into the room that she needs to get into, and then makes this big scene of saying that he's done helping her now, but then he ends up coming back in this great moment where he saves her life.
Clearly, I'll never get rid of you unless I escort you out myself.
No, I think you saved me because I was right. There's good in you.
Casey, don't do...
Brett, please, you have to come with me. I can get you back into the organization.
Casey, please, I'm not...
Brett, let me just make this clear. Okay? You don't have a choice, because I'm not leaving here without you.
Fine. I'm in.
Now, like almost every scene that we've watched today, I absolutely love that one. Brett finally caving and Casey refusing to leave without him, and then that hand-holding moment, like the whole thing is just 10 out of 10. So this brings us up to the rooftop where there is a helicopter waiting to take Casey to safety. Brett tells Casey to get on first, but then we come to find out that he's not going to be going with her. She tries to convince him, saying that once again she knows that there's good in him, but he says that he's just not the good guy that she wants him to be, and so the two of them share their goodbyes.
Casey! I'm not the good guy you want me to be. I'm just not.
Brett, you are wrong, okay? Deep down inside of you, there's good. Besides, you can't stay here. If they found out that you helped me, they're going to eliminate you.
No, they won't. Maybe I'll see you on another mission someday. Until then, here's looking at you, babe.
So I feel like you guys know what I'm gonna say. The fact that these two are such a big part of the first season and yet they don't even share a kiss with one another, just like, it makes me a little bit sad. But I do also think this scene is great without it. I mean, he uses the babe nickname once again, so it's like, what else could I want? And so after this, Brett disappears again and then we don't see him again till the end of the season, and so I feel like this is a great opportunity to move on to the final chapter, which is chapter 3. Alright, so jumping ahead 10 episodes, we find out that this other guy at school likes Casey and she seems to feel the same way, and so she's gonna go camping with him and a group of friends. But meanwhile, Brett is given an assignment from the other side to eliminate, or for those of you who aren't familiar with Casey Undercover terminology, that means kill Casey. I know. Drama! And then this is probably the most iconic moment between the couple, so I'm sure you're familiar with this part, but then we see Brett break into Casey's room while she's getting ready for this camping trip, and he holds her at gunpoint. Or laser point, since they don't actually use real guns in this show.
Did you come here to kill me because you found out that I was going camping with Greg Wilson? Really, it's a group thing, and I'm surprised that he even asked me because he's kind of like the shy type, which, now that I think about it, isn't gonna work because I'm a shy type. So it's like you can't really have a relationship.
Are you trying to make me squeeze this trigger?
It would speed up the process.
Don't worry. I'm gonna do it.
Okay.
I am.
Whatever.
I just feel like this scene perfectly demonstrates why this ship is so good. Like, yes, you could argue that him threatening to murder her is problematic behavior, but again, that's the genre of this series. If this was just your average run-of-the-mill sitcom, then yeah, we'd have a problem, but it's not. Like, these two characters don't live normal lives. Like, this is their version of normal, and is it toxic? Sure, why not? But like, it also just makes for like a great spy series. This scene also just shows how in love with Casey Brett is. Like, if he really was some like heartless crazy person, he would have killed her like the second he walked in her room, but he didn't because he's a genuine good guy. Just like Casey said, underneath it all, he is a good guy and he is just so in love with her. Even with his own life on the line, he still doesn't have it in him to actually pull that trigger, which I feel like just goes to show how in love with her he is. So Casey then cancels going on this camping trip, which causes Marissa to realize that something's up, and so she comes and questions her, which results in this great moment.
Casey, why aren't you going on this trip? Greg Wilson is the first guy you've liked since that nightmare Brett. Remember how brokenhearted you were?
I wouldn't say I was brokenhearted. I think that's a little bit extreme.
You cried for a week. You were all like, he's bad, but he's good, and he has such beautiful hair. I'll never find another guy like him.
Marissa, I think you're exaggerating a little bit.
Honey, you photoshopped what your kids would look like. It's no secret that you were crazy head over heels for Brett.
See, the show is just so good because previously we saw Casey having the advantage over him by the fact that he wasn't able to eliminate her, but now the tables have turned and now he kind of has the upper hand by having Marissa reveal how strongly she cared for him. Like, it's just such good writing. Moving on, we then see Marissa give Casey the idea of asking the organization to take Brett back, which she thinks is a great idea, which makes sense considering the fact that it previously was her idea, but whatever. So Casey goes to the organization and tries to plead his case, but is told that if he did ever come back, that they would lock him up for life. Then back at the house, their cover ends up getting blown when Casey's mom discovers Brett hiding in her closet. So obviously Casey's parents are upset with them for putting their family in danger, and so Brett apologizes for all the trouble he's caused and leaves, resulting in Casey running after him. So then we see the two of them in a car, and Brett is telling Casey that she needs to get out because as long as she's with him, she's in danger. She says he's being overdramatic, but then Brett is proven to be right once they end up getting tailed by another agent from the other side, Ursula, who Brett then goes on to reveal is also his girlfriend. So then they end up getting into a car chase, and Casey is shown to be pretty upset with Brett for not telling her that he was with someone. She then goes on to get on top of their car and into Ursula's, and the two of them get into a fight, resulting in their car driving off of a cliff, with Brett screaming no as the episode ends. What a great ending to a Disney Channel show, am I right? Like, the poor children that watched this show had to wait a whole week to find out if their beloved main character was still alive. It reminds me of the second mid-season finale from Soy Luna, where they ended on the cliffhanger of her about to get hit by a car. I just find it funny, especially because I'm sure the kids know that they're not not actually going to kill off their main character, but at the end of the day, whoever is responsible for either of those decisions has my full praise. So on to part 2, we see Brett freaking out thinking that Casey has died in this car wreck, but then comes to find out that she was able to survive by clinging to a hanging branch. So they have their little reunion. Brett says that he's glad that she's okay, and Casey says that he should probably break up with Ursula, but then the car below bursts into flames and they realize that he's not going to have to do that, thinking that she's dead. Then back at the house, the Coopers decide to help Brett by sending him to Mexico to hide. And then, as I'm sure to nobody's surprise, Ursula is found to be not dead, and so she tracks them to the froyo place. They get into a physical fight. Obviously Casey wins, and then they flee the scene. Now realizing that they don't have much time or money, they decide to switch course to Canada instead, as it's closer. Then after picking up Ernie and Marissa, they head to a cabin near the border to hide, which results in the two of them sharing a moment by the fireplace.
You know, I'm glad I got to spend a little bit more time with you.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, it's no secret how I feel.
No, it is not. Just to be clear, how exactly do you feel?
Casey, you know that I'm in love with you.
Oh, okay, well, that's cool.
Don't you want to tell me how you feel about me?
Yeah,
Now, I personally feel like it was very rude that this beautiful confession of love was interrupted by laser gunfire, but once again, I understand that that's the genre of the series, so I can't complain too much. The two of them are then able to run away on horseback, but then they end up getting caught and Brett gets shot. But then it's this potential injury that ends up giving Casey the push she needs to finally confess how she really feels to Brett.
Brett, look, you gotta wake up, okay? Brett, look, I love you, okay? I have loved you from the moment that I saw you, please. I'm never gonna get a chance to tell you.
Oh, you don't need to tell me that. I knew it all along. I mean, who wouldn't fall in love with me?
Now, I remember being kind of disappointed the first time I watched this scene because I feel like Brett's reaction being kind of teasing almost ruins the moment, but I'll take what I can get. And for those of you who haven't seen the show in a while, or maybe have never seen it, because apparently that's a thing, people are watching this and they haven't even watched the show, which is just like the biggest honor for me, but anyways, getting off track. He's able to survive due to the fact that he's wearing a laser-proof vest. So this brings us to the end of the episode, and also, unfortunately, the end of their story, where we see the couple joke for a bit before sharing a heartfelt goodbye.
Well, I mean, at least Ursula will report that you've been eliminated and you can go start a new life.
Yeah. I hear Canada has great bacon.
Yeah. Stay safe, babe.
That final goodbye and hug is just so good, and I swear I'm not over-exaggerating when I say that it brings me to tears almost every single time that I watch it. And I'm not even mad that they don't share a kiss. Like, that long hug and forehead kiss is almost more powerful in a way. And I feel like you can just tell how much he cares for her in that alone. And so while that is technically the end of their story, we do see Brett again in the second season when Casey uses Ernie's virtual reality simulator to run away to a private island with him. And then in the third season, it's hinted at that they are still in contact with one another when Casey is asked to call him to find something out for a mission. And so that's it. That's Casey and Brett. Their relationship may only span over one season, but they are still just without a doubt one of my favorite ships of all time. And although we don't get to see them share a happy reunion in the show, there is just no doubt in my mind that these two would find their way back to each other eventually. I can totally see Casey moving to Canada later on in life and reuniting with him, because it's just like, when you share a love story like that, there's just no way that it could just end there. And you know what else doesn't end there? That's right, this video, because now it's time for today's sponsorship, HelloFresh. So if you're like me and you're looking to take the hassle out of mealtime this spring so you can spend more time outside in this warm weather, HelloFresh has dinner covered by delivering pre-portioned ingredients and easy to prepare recipes right to your door. I personally have used HelloFresh before, and I've always loved it because it takes away the stress of having to plan dinners for the week. Not to mention it's cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% cheaper than takeout, which is also great. My boyfriend and I particularly enjoyed making the Swedish-style beef meatballs this past week, and as you can tell, he was a fan, so thank you HelloFresh for feeding my significant other. And it's great because there's no need to worry about being a pro in the kitchen, as HelloFresh's foolproof recipes arrive pre-portioned and easy to prepare in just a few steps. So if you want to give HelloFresh a try, you can go to HelloFresh.com and use promo code Caitlin50 for 50% off, plus your first box ships free. So that's HelloFresh.com, use promo code Caitlin50 for 50% off, and your first box will ship free. So thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video, and thank you guys for checking them out, as like I always say, it does really help out the channel a lot, so thank you. Before we wrap up this video though, there is one other thing I wanted to talk about in regards to Casey Undercover, and that is about Casey and Darian. He's Casey's boyfriend for a little bit post the whole Brett arc, and I just wanted to mention that I did really like their relationship as well. I just personally feel like we didn't really get to see enough of them for me to actually care enough to summarize their relationship in this video. But as a second place to Casey and Brett, I feel like I liked them and their story was pretty cute as well. But like, obviously, they're ultimately second to Casey and Brett. But yeah, I guess that's all, so I will do my outro now. Anyways, Gator Tots, that is all I have to say for today. Hope you'll have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you very, very soon. Also, of course, please leave in the comments down below which love story you guys want to see me cover next. I feel like the popular vote right now is for Austin and Ally, but I just need like a hot minute for that because I would need to rewatch the entire show to be able to cover them. So I'm gonna need some time for that one, but please let me know who would be your runner-up. I am curious. But yeah, that's all. Who would I want to cover next, you ask? I'm not too sure. Violetta and Leon, I feel like deserve to be covered because they are just a mess. And BM and Manuel are my favorites, so I would love to talk about them as well, but again, the general public doesn't really care as much about them, which makes me sad. So I will continue talking about the English ones. I guess they're good too. Yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling now. Love you guys. Bye!